Welcome all to join our discussion today, our seminar and the webinar. And please very welcome our guest today, Tom Camich.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So I want to welcome everyone. So we got a lot of Hong Konger based in Calgary to join this session. So we also get around 100 people joining online from across Canada. So we are very grateful for the Canadian government to provide this very special Hong Kong pathway, a light bulb scheme for Hong Kongers who need to escape Hong Kong. Unfortunately, for the last few years, there have been so many problems. So that's why we have this seminar today. So this seminar will be conducted in English, but for the opening, I will do it bilingual because I want to remind everyone that our guest, Tom Camich MP, he doesn't represent the government. So he is from the opposition party, the Conservative Party. He is here to help us. So if you have a lot of problems, don't bring on him. So I want to make it very clear because a lot of Hong Kongers, they are not familiar with the federal system. So they thought that Tom's the bad guy. So I want to make it very clear. Tom is the good guy. He's on our side. So let me put it in Cantonese. 歡迎大家 join 我哋今日舉辦嘅香港救生艇嘅研討會啦。咁就由 Hong Kong Watch 同埋呢一個 HKYPA 舉辦嘅。咁頭先我講英文嘅時候都講得好清楚，講 Hong Kong Pathway， 我哋其實都係要多謝加拿大政府有呢個 scheme。但係我諗座入到嚟嘅都係有好多人係好嬲，我知道，因為等咗好耐啦，又或者個 open work permit 就俾人 reject 咗。又做唔到嘢，又冇 healthcare， 呢個係好嚴重嘅問題，所以我哋有 Tom Camich MP 嚟幫我哋手。但我想解釋俾大家知咧 ，Tom Camich MP 咧佢就係由保守黨 Conservative Party 代表呢一個即係反對黨嘅我哋叫做係嚟幫助我哋。咁所以咗大家有個問題，唔係因為佢，亦都唔係因為佢個黨嘅，咁呢我想要解釋清楚，係啦。咁但係 Tom Camich MP 咧，就因為佢係移民委員會，佢亦都係保守黨嘅影子移民部長啊，所以咧就變咗嚟緊有大選啦嘅時候咧。有機會，如果保守黨上場，就變咗佢可以改變政策。咁所以我哋今日咧就有呢一個嘅研討會，係啦。咁so that's what I want to say to explain. So because I don't want people come up to the table and say, "Hey Tom, you done all this wrong." So I don't want to have that confusion. So welcome. Thank you very much, Tom Camich. So I give it to Sam to introduce our guest, Tom.
Yeah, it is an honor to welcome a distinguished guest to our discussion today. Mr. Tom Camich is a member of Parliament representing the riding of Calgary Shepherd in Alberta. He has been strong advocate for immigrant issue, family reunification, and government accountability. He has served in several parliamentary roles, including, as Aileen mentioned, that is a Conservative Party's Shadow Minister for Immigration and the Standing Committee on Citizenship in Immigration. He has consistently voiced concern over bureaucratic delays in Canada's immigration system recent years, advocating for fair and more efficient processing of applications. And also, Mr. Camich is the Deputy Chair of Canada-China Relations Committees. He always support and speak up for Hong Kong people like MPF issue. So as an MP with a deeply understanding of policy and legislative matters, he has actively engaged with various communities, including Hong Kong Watch, HKYPA, and Hong Kong Newcomer to Hong Kong. Today, we are fortunate to have him with us to share the insight of the challenges faced by Hong Kong immigrants applying for PR in Canada. Following that, we will have approximately 40 minutes for an open Q&A section. Welcome to participate. To ensure the smooth discussion, we kindly ask you, especially the online audience, to submit your questions in advance to Aileen and the Zoom. Okay, thank you. Please applause to Mr. Tom Camich. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me. So I won't take too much time, so I'll take questions. I've done a few of these now. Last one I did was at a church in Richmond with Kenny Chu, which I know is well known with other community members. So I kind of know what the questions are going to be, but I want you to be able to ask them, get them off your chest. My interest, obviously, in your community is, like many of you know this, you are not voters yet because you don't even have the PR yet. You might have family members who are here or have families because you've either met someone here and you're getting married or are married. But Hong Kong and Canada, we have a very long relationship between the two countries. There are Canadian soldiers who served in Hong Kong in the defense of Hong Kong. There are soldiers, especially from Western Canada, who served there, who died there. Very famously, there is a former member of parliament, a conservative from the 1950s, Douglas Jung, who was an officer, a spy. He was a little bit of everything. He was a member of parliament, politician. You should look him up. He spent 2 years as a member of parliament, I think, or 3 years in our national parliament, a Hong Konger, very, very famous, became a member of parliament at a time when it was unexpected of him to do so. And there's actually a federal building now named after him in downtown Vancouver that you can go see as well. But my interest is, like many of you, I come from a communist country. That country no longer exists anymore. It's in the dustbins of history, thankfully. I'm Polish. I was born in communist Poland. My dad came here in 1983 in something that used to be called the politically persecuted self-exiled class, which many of you will identify with this. That classification of refugee no longer exists. My dad came here on a medical exit visa, and then he overstayed, got a job at a shipyard east of Montreal, and that's how he got to stay in Canada. That's how my family got to come here. I was separated from my father for 2 years. Our whole family was, which again is the experience of many of you. You are separated from your family, which may be back in Hong Kong and are unable to come here or don't want to come here or would like to come here, but they can't for whatever reason. So your experience is an experience I've heard because that was the dinner table talk my family had. Many of you through the lifeboat stream, I know that's what the Liberals have called it, that's what the government has called it. There's a study stream and a work stream. So most of my commentary will be about the work stream because that's the majority, I understand, are facing the difficulties from the government there. All of you don't have a dedicated stream. This stream is in the H&C stream, which is a humanitarian compassionate grounds. H&C was never meant to stream entire classifications of groups of people from one country into it. H&C historically has been used in Canada as the application of last resort. It's supposed to be the place where you come to Canada whenever, and then you don't fit into any other category, or the circumstances after you come here change, which could be your country of origin no longer exists because maybe there was a breakdown in a federated state and it's a whole bunch of independent states. A good example of that is Yugoslavia. The Yugoslav Republic no longer exists. It's a whole bunch of different countries, but there were people who had come here to study, to work here temporarily, and they have no country to go back to because literally their passports they're not good anymore. That country doesn't exist anymore. So that's one. So in the H&C application with those visa officers that work there, what their training is like is you can only get H&C in the regular way you're supposed to get it. And usually it takes 18 months to process. They're supposed to look at every single other program and find which one can you apply for. If none of them work, then you can get H&C. What the Liberals have done, what the government has done, is they've put you in competition with every single Ukrainian Kiawit visa holder. All Yazidis, all Sudanese are in the same streams. These are not tens of thousands of people. These are hundreds of thousands of people that you compete with. You also compete with the time for the visa officers, which is why the processing time you were promised of 6.5 months, that's impossible to actually accomplish with the amount of manpower that's been dedicated. This is the same department, by the way, that just announced a few weeks ago, it's firing 3,500 people. This is a department that between 2015 and up until very recently last month had more than doubled its staffing. In 2022, they moved to an all digital application. So the excuse of we lost your application, we made a mistake was all supposed to go away. That was the promise that I kept hearing, that processing errors would no longer happen. And I know for many of you, processing errors continue to happen because I'm sure some of you have gotten this rejection letter where they tell you your work permit is rejected because you don't have an LMIA, which in your stream, you do not need an LMIA. That's because visa officers are being reassigned to consider H&C applications under this lifeboat stream under the PR pathway. So this was never meant to happen. It was never meant to be this way. Processing times now, I have to say, like, I don't even believe the numbers I'm being given. I think it's easily well over a year, and it will only get longer as time passes by. The general rule I live by is no false hope. I don't want to give you hope that the Conservatives will come in with a majority government if we earn it, and I will be able to magically just transform the department that has been one giant dumpster fire and be able to fix it for you, because we likely will not be able to do things instantaneously. What we will do, though, is make sure that we provide public information and stop with all the very basic errors. I know many of you, I'm sure, have gotten this experience too, where you have this letter that you've received in the mail that says your work permit is good until a certain date. And then after that date, it's when your visa is processed. Whichever comes first, usually the date they give you on the permit, effectively it's expiring your status in Canada and it's expiring work permit. So the government at committee admitted that they had made a mistake. The government official, which was I think a director general, admitted that they knew they were going to make a mistake. They sent these out intentionally, knowing that this was going to cause a problem in the communities that they were going out to. And I'm pretty sure it's not just Hong Kongers, it's also others. I fully expect in another 22 to 23 days, when Kiawit visa holders, the Ukrainians, get their visa renewals, that they will get a similar type of letter. This is like basic administration of the department. These are things we can change as Conservatives. These are things we can improve. H&C for 2025, there's 10,000 applicants that'll be accepted. There are tens of thousands of Hong Kongers, hundreds of thousands of Kiawit visa holders, Yazidis, hundreds of Yazidis, and there's over, I think, 3,000 Sudanese that will be accepted through this H&C PR pathway. It goes down to 6,900 next year, 4,300 the year after that. Those numbers, if you see the current immigration consensus in Canada, there is no consensus that immigration is a good thing. There is no consensus amongst the voting public that more immigration is always a net benefit. And speaking as an immigrant, I'm talking to many of you, all of you are immigrants. We know that's not necessarily the case. Many of you are working really hard to earn your hours so you can apply through the PR pathway. But we need to fix the immigration consensus, which is why we can't necessarily change those numbers. What we can do, though, is find other current existing programs and expand them to include Hong Kongers. So you can find a pathway for PR to be able to remain in Canada. I can tell you as a Conservative, and especially an anti-communist, a general rule, I don't want to send anybody back to Hong Kong who doesn't want to go back. I don't know why you'd want to go back to Hong Kong personally, but I don't want to send anybody back to a place where the national security law is being applied so harshly and people being arrested and jailed, Cardinal Zen, Jimmy Lai. Like, that is not what we want to continue to see happen. So nobody will be sent back. I can tell you that if I ever hear of a case where you're being sent to one of these hearings for deportation, tell me right away, make it public. Fight for it, because that should not be happening to anyone. That's a commitment the Liberals have made, and that's a commitment I'm more than happy to make personally, that nobody should be sent back. That being said, you may experience a situation where you will have to apply for renewal of your temporary resident status, so renewing your work permit once. I know it's very frustrating, especially for those who are from outside of Alberta. If you're from British Columbia, Ontario, there are these vacancy taxes now for non-residents, essentially. Although you are a resident, you're considered a non-permanent resident, non-citizen. So it could be 15% tax that you pay when you purchase a condo, a home, a townhouse, whatever that is. I can't fix that. Those are provincial rules. That might just be the price you have to pay if you're purchasing a property to live in it, that you might have to renew your work permit once for 3 years, and then afterwards you'll perhaps apply for PR thereafter. So on the PR, the hours will have to stay the same as well. We can't change those. There are lots of provincial nominee programs, though, and I have personally spoken to the Minister of Immigration here in Alberta about finding these provincial nominee programs and finding pathways for Hong Kongers to apply. Like, there's an entire hotel stream in Alberta that could be expanded. Right now, it's only for those on a closed work permit, but I don't see any reason why you should exclude a Hong Konger working in a hotel or a restaurant on an open work permit, why they could not be allowed to apply. To me, it's just common sense. What we're trying to do is to encourage people to stay in the hospitality industry. some of you are in the hospitality industry. I don't see any reason why it should be so exclusive. That should equally apply to those who've chosen different streams to go through. There's also express entry. And I know for many of you, you'll probably rank like a 450 score in express entry. Changing the point system is something we conservatives want to do. And it's one of the first things we would do in government. The last time the point system was changed was about 2011, 2012. And the point system has existed in Canada since the 1970s. It's literally the reason why people across the world say Canada has the best immigration system, Canada has a pointage system. We don't look at race, we don't look at religion, we don't care about any of those things. We look at what are your objective qualifications? How old are you? How much education do you have? How much work experience do you have? Are you married? Are you not married? And then we basically put that into numbers and we give you a score, and that is your score. The government, when it makes a selection through express entry, doesn't say, I want everybody 450 to 470. That's not how the draw is done. It draws from the top. The more points you have, the more likely you are to be drawn first. The problem with what the Liberals have been doing so far today is, one is they don't do enough draws. And you can go on to, my favorite website is canadavisa.com, and they can show you what the draws are and how many people are drawn from there. But they do category draws. So they say anybody with a trade, and they'll tell you which trades are in high demand, and then they select only trades. And though, if you happen to be in one of those, you're very fortunate. You can get in on a 430 or even lower. In 1 year, just a few years back, someone got in on a 106 score, just because they were in the correct occupation that they were selecting for, which tells you how desperate they were for the occupation, but also how low your score could be if you happen to be in it. That is not my preference. My preference is to have lots of general draws, because the more you draw from the top, the lower it becomes for the next person. I did my own express entry. I just checked how much I would be. I'm at 534. So that's pretty high, but I would even miss the cutoff on some of the draws. Yes. And the only reason I have a 534 is because I speak French. That is the only reason. I speak French the way a Quebecer would. Without a 534, I'd be a 484, which means I can't even get into Canada because I'm too old. I have some education. I am old. I'm over 40. You lose all your points after 41. So if any of you are over 41, I got bad news for you. You lose all the points for age in express entry because of the way the system's set up. So the point system, we want to change it to include, my preference would be to include things like the longer you work in Canada legally, the more points you should get to offset the points that you lose for your age. You should also be, if you work and you pay more taxes than the average worker in Canada, you're making a contribution to Canada's GDP per capita, which is a net benefit, which means whatever job you're doing, you're either working a lot of overtime, which is great, that's what we want people to work, or your occupation and your profession is so valuable, so needed, so wanted that people are paying you a premium on wages. We also want you to stay longer, so we should give you more points so you rise to the top. So on express entry, that's what we would do. On finding new programs to put in Hong Kongers, so you don't just have this one singular program, then you have to wait patiently to get in. Finding you more options and more opportunities. And now lastly, and I'll stop talking and I'll take questions, is the mistakes and the errors and the ridiculous stuff I've seen, like the being rejected on your visa because you don't have an LMIA, being rejected because they don't believe that the purpose of your stay here is for the HNC, right? Like they don't believe that you will go back to your country of origin. Like, newsflash to the visa officers, like, yes, that's correct. You will not go back because there is no country to go back to. Hong Kong is not an independent city-state anymore. It's been basically absorbed into the communist regime. The CCP controls it completely. It's ruled out of Beijing. It's not ruled by the Hong Kong LegCo anymore. So I understand that. Better training for visa officers will help that. If you have those types of cases, I will ask you to please email my office, but specifically my Ottawa office. So I have a Hong Konger who works for me, Clarice. She used to be a journalist with Apple Daily. Please reach out to my office. We put together Excel spreadsheets. I need the documentation though. I need to know what the error is on the file. A really long processing time is not usually an error. So if you've been waiting on your first application a year, you have to wait a little bit longer. If it's been like, if you've been rejected, then you reapply and it's been like 2 years or something ridiculous like that, yeah, then reach out to my office. The first thing you should do though is reach out to your local member of parliament. Just for the sake of triage, because if all tens of thousands you reach to my office, I will have to tell you the same thing I tell others is, I'm inundated with case files from my own constituents. I have the second largest riding in Canada by population size. You will be unsurprised to perhaps learn there are lots of errors on lots of files throughout other classifications of immigrants in Canada. Some people are just doing status changes and there's lots of simple errors. Reach out to your member of parliament locally, keep the email stream, go to their offices, ask to meet. You don't have to necessarily meet with the MP, meet with their case file manager. That 9 times out of 10, what they can do is what I can do on the file. If they realize that there's an error on the file, they can do exactly the same things I can do, which is reach out to the minister's office and see if there's a way to pinpoint the error, write a very brief letter in bullet point form that says, these are the errors in the file on page 7, on page 10, on page 13. That actually helps the visa officers fix their mistakes. If you've done that and your local MP doesn't answer you, especially if they're a Liberal MP and they're embarrassed by their government because they can't fix it for whatever reason, then please send it to me. I do have people in the department who are willing to help. I do accumulate them in an Excel spreadsheet and we send them periodically over in batches to try and get them fixed. From my anecdotal evidence that I've seen on people then get back to me, sometimes within 24 hours they get a response saying, yeah, it's fixed here magically. It just suddenly happens that whatever was the error is fixed in time. Sometimes it does take weeks and months to fix these errors. So like patience is a great virtue in general, especially if you have kids. Those of you who have kids, you know this, patience is a big virtue. But dealing with the immigration department nowadays, you require a lot of patience just to try and get through it. And the processing delays I think are here to stay. The 6.5 months quoted to you by the Liberal government is completely dishonest. It gives false hope to people and it's simply not true. In my interactions with officials at committee, which you can go watch easily, I put it on Instagram and on Facebook, you can see that they barely know what the heck they're doing when they know that they're sending out information with obvious errors in it. And for those of you who've had your kids deregistered from school, lost your jobs because of it, like, I'm not responsible for that. I do feel sorry. That the government of Canada should do a much better job, especially because everything is digital today. And there's no reason for such basic errors. And any visa officer would easily be able to check, but it comes from the top down. It comes directly from the minister instructing the visa officers on how to process things. These errors 20 to 25 years ago usually were caught pretty quickly by this class of visa officers, which were quite good. And today, a lot of it is done by machine. Nobody reviews it. There's an AI tool that's often being used and it's not being reviewed properly. These are all kind of growing pains as the government goes digital. That's not an excuse though. They should do better because they made promises to your community members that they would do right by you. So my promise to you is, as I find files with errors, as you send it to me, I will try and do my best to fix them. And conservatives more broadly, we don't want to send anybody back because we recognize that it is an authoritarian regime now in Hong Kong. We can't save Hong Kong, the city, but we can save Hong Kongers. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for this very insight to us, the point system. Anyone can speak French here? No, only you. But I want to ask, anyone resides in Canada more than 2 years? Anyone? A lot, right? Since the pathway, you need to spend at least 2 years to graduate or working experience. Under my knowledge, the point system, the maximum Canadian experience is countable is 2 years. Is it? Could you change in some other day for those of people more than 2 years, add more points on that to help these people?
So yes, so the points are controlled by the government. The government can change them any time. The last time it was done, the government today, which was a conservative government, they gave it over to a bunch of academics, like professors, business people, the so-called experts to say, and gave it in terms of reference, these are our goals we want to achieve. Please design us points to achieve those goals. So it shouldn't be politicians deciding these types of group of people will get 5 points, those will get 10 points, these will get 7. It's better to just give it over. That is my recommendation, is to give it over to people who know supposedly what I hope they know what they're doing. But if we get enough of them in the room, collective intelligence will take over, is to design a system that preferences working in Canada for long periods of time. And especially if you have a temporary residence status, it's not just true for Hong Kongers, it's true for a lot of people who've been on temporary resident visas for extended periods of time, have had multiple renewals. I would prefer a system, because the longer you work in Canada, the older you get. So the less points you get in express entry for age. And if that's the system we want most immigrants to be assessed by, which is, in my case, yes, that's to me an objective way that would rebuild Canadians' trust in the immigration system, that everybody was rated exactly the same way in a objective system that only looks at what are you contributing to Canada. We should look at things like, how long have you worked legally? How long have you paid taxes? How much taxes did you pay? And if those are yes, 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 and lots, then it should be lots of points. Like, that would be what I would tell them to design, and leave it up to them to design. So if it's 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 6, unlimited, I'd leave it to the experts to figure it out. What's the best method?
Yeah, hope we can change that. According to your speech, is some of the applicants facing the very, very extremely issue is their working permit is already expired. One of our audience today is over a year. Yeah, so they can't find a job, or maybe losing the health care, or even they have children, they have to pay the international school fee. How can they sustain the living in Canada in these circumstances?
So their circumstance with the government's, I'll say what the government's response was first. So the government said there's a website now you go to. At the bottom of the website, there's a bunch of words listed saying to an employer or an insurance provider, like a public insurer, Blue Cross, that they should continue even though the letter says that your status is expired. Again, that's just an embarrassment for the government not to be able to just issue a PDF quickly that changes the language in the work permit. I'd say go to your member of parliament, show them what's happened. Show your employer if they want. The problem for most employers will be they're so scared, and rightfully so, of being offside with like the tax rules, because there's tax implications, not just immigration implications, to keeping someone on staff where they're not legally allowed to work. And so they're obviously very careful, and a website might not be enough. In that situation, to me, the government should just issue new letters, which is what I told them they should be doing, but they haven't done so. They just said the website will be good enough. Go to your member of parliament. If that doesn't work, email me. I need all the information, and I will go to my contacts in the department.
Yeah, because some of the Hong Kongers, they face the problem is through the reform with no response. Yep. So they can't get the maintain status letters to prove that to their employee, to an employer, so that I'm legally work in Canada. That's the problem is they are facing.
Yeah. So usually you should be getting that procedural letter, right, in the mail that says, your work permit on top left, it has like W usually, not always, has a W, has a long list of numbers, and it has your legal name, and it has a bunch of form stuff in it, and it says at one point, it is, your work permit is good until X date, usually 3 months after they think it's the processing time, and then it says, or when the work permit is processed, whichever date comes first. And because the expiration date comes first, because they can't process them within 3 months, your status expires. They said, again, that website is supposed to be a good one. For those of you who have employers who are having this situation, I'd send that website first. And then the next part I do, your member of parliament, like just ask them for like a letter confirming the case that, you know, the government has said it's actually the reverse of what they said in writing, which is your status actually doesn't expire until your visa is processed, either a yes or a no, and that the letter is wrong, which is ridiculous because, again, most people will tell you, most lawyers will tell you, well, no, the piece of paper is the accurate one, and what the website says is irrelevant. But Minister Miller has said so publicly that this is the case. The Director General has said so at committee that this is the case. I would use that. If not, go to your member of parliament, try to get them to write you a letter. If none of that works and you're still having employer problems in your school, especially here if it's CBE or CCSD, like let me know. Then I can maybe write something, or usually if it's a trustee problem, I can reach out to the trustee. I know some of them to try and have this sorted out because they should be aware of it as well. And I just recognize, like, again, this is such a basic error. Like if you were working in a business and you made this error, you are likely to get yelled at by your manager or supervisor. And I can't believe that the government of Canada would do something so like half-assed to send a letter out knowing it's wrong and then telling people just go to your employer, show them this website to keep your jobs. It's just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, because most of the Hong Kong applicants, they very struggling because they often get the reject by the applying the open work permit, and you said that LMIA is which is not required, and they mistakenly rejected. So I think you guys have a lot of questions. But besides that, I need to ask Aileen, do you have anything to address that?
Well, actually, we got 4 pages of questions, so I grouped them. So like 6 questions actually regarding the alternative to agency. Because right now there are over 18,000 Hong Konger in the system applying for PR. So with the admission target, it will take many years to clear them. So a lot of Hong Kong are thinking like, what are other alternatives? So actually there are not many alternatives. One we identify actually is the express entry. So that's the point system. So we will appreciate like if the Conservative Party will become the next government. So what will be the new structure for the point? And also we are asking for the point system right now. Majority Hong Konger, they get the average, score only around 400. So that's why for majority of them, they cannot be able to qualify. So we got one core member of HKYPA, so that's the banner behind you, Hong Kong Young Professional Association. Only one got the express entry because she got the French. So like almost like for any Hong Konger without French, you would not be able to have the score over 500. So actually we are asking, is it possible to give Hong Kong pathway applicants extra 100 points because you're under the Hong Kong pathway? So we give you 100 points. So that means Hong Kong pathway can have allocation from express entry because they're like usually over 200,000 admission target for the economic class. And also under stream B, that's the work permit stream. So majority of them, they are young professionals, like from IT, AI, pharmaceutical, financial. So they are really, contributing to our society, our country in terms of revenue and GDP. So we want them. So I think like if we can, give them some point and then clear the backlog, because I think the government right now, they put like the whole Hong Kong pathway stream under agency. To me, it doesn't make sense. It should not be there because, like for the study stream, they pay international student fees. It's how humanitarian is that, right? They're paying international fees, and for the working stream, they're paying taxes from day one. So, but yet, well, I will talk about the work permit problem later. But for this, we would like to have your response, the possibility to have a more fair point system, and that will help clear the backlog of Hong Kong pathway. And is there a possibility to add some points because the new government want to clear the backlog? Therefore, we add some points. So then this young professional, because they have not lived in Canada for long enough, we can clear them and then they can transfer from TR, become PR. Thank you, Tom.
So right now there's 18,349 applications in the process stream. And many of those people will wait. Many of you who are in this stream will probably wait well over a year or 2 years. Like the backlogs are just under 2 million applications across all classifications. They will say that about 900,000 of them are for files which are over their posted number. So when you log into your portal, it gives you a number, right? Like how long will the processing time be? Has it in days? Sometimes it changes day to day. That's because, as I discovered, that number only takes in applications in the last 6 months. So it's not actually a true reflection of the processing times for that from the start of that stream of applications. It's just the previous 6 months. I didn't even know that. I found that out from the Auditor General's office. The next part is, now they're doing something sneaky. And I say this because it's sneaky because I've seen this over 9 years in my office now. And this is not just unique to Hong Kong Pathway. They do this across all classification streams, all streams of immigration. Whenever there's a more complex file, they will label it as non-routine. What non-routine does, some of you sighed because you were labeled non-routine. When non-routine happens, that means that file drops out of normal processing times. They don't have to process it in whatever that number is posted anymore. It also does not get counted towards that average. So because it doesn't get counted towards the average, that means it's skewed. It skews in favor of the government. That means some files take a really long time to process. Sometimes non-routine does make sense. Sometimes non-routine is because there is a security problem, because you might be someone who has like a criminal record back in whatever country of origin you're from, or you have a very common name for your country of origin and your date of birth matches with your city of normal residence from that country of origin, and you have the same name, like lots of yeses, and then that will slow down your application. And sometimes there is no rhyme and there is no reason, and they just do it, and the processing times don't look as bad. So non-routine is becoming much more common. I'm seeing it much more. People are sending me emails telling them they talked to so-and-so's office and IRCC told them it's now non-routine. There is no processing timeline for non-routine. There's also nothing a member of parliament can do to make it go faster. Our system it insulates our visa officers from influence of members of parliament and politicians. It'll simply be processed whenever that office decides, like the IRCC decides it wants to do it. On PRs generally, the number of PRs is actually going down, about 15,000 a year. So from 395,000 down to 365,000. This is not conservatives. These are liberals doing this. They have officially said this. These are the new numbers. It's a 21% reduction from the high totals. It's still quite a lot. It's still a lot more than was there about 10 years ago. So numbers can only come down, and a lot of the cuts are coming in HNC, like I said, from 10,000 down to 4,900. I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because they know this from their own visa statistics over the last 9 years. That's where lots of people go when they're desperate. I have people I've spoken to in church basements who are Ukrainian war refugees who are applying for HNC because they have no other program that they can apply for. And they're intentionally reducing this while telling people there is a pathway for them for PR in Canada, which again is that false hope that I don't want to give. What the Liberals have also done is they've stopped private sponsorship of refugees through a group of 5 sponsorship called the G5 and other streams. That's the reverse of what I think is the right way to do it. There should be less government-assisted refugees and more pathways in that, in what are called PSR, so privately sponsored refugees, so church groups and church community groups, mosques and temples who are sponsorship agreement holders should be able to do so. I think there's also a way to expand that to include perhaps some Hong Kongers who are very well-known democracy activists who are household names to many of you, but most Canadians couldn't even pick them out of a lineup, who would be selected for something like it because they are at high risk of political persecution. Some of them were even born in Canada, perhaps in Edmonton, went overseas, became members of the LegCo, and then are now living in the United States after having surrendered their citizenship. There are people like that who are looking for opportunities to return to Canada. And then lastly, for the express entry one, I would be worried if we gave it over to some experts and they would designate 50 points just for Hong Kongers in the pathway stream, because then the expectation would be everybody else would get specific points assigned to them based on their stream. And if we did that, then it would be of no benefit, because then the pointer system is supposed to be who is a net benefit to Canada. And that net benefit is not decided by country of origin or pathway that you came here. It's how productive are you economically. And that is the way that we have built up the consensus that immigration is a good thing in Canada. And the more you move away from it, the more support for immigration drops in Canada and people begin to question it. So to move away from that, you'd have to provide for points that are objectively provided. If you are working in IT and you are a software engineer, a developer, you're being paid lots because those are in high demand occupations, then you are likely earning more than the average worker is, which is why I brought up the example of providing those who pay more taxes than the average worker in Canada, or like a median worker, don't have to use an average necessarily. You could say if you earn more than half of Canadians, then you would get more points. If we gave that type of direction to the people who redo the points, I'm convinced that would be a net benefit to most Hong Kongers in Canada, because probably half of you will do some type of IT work, I gotta say. That's what I typically get in my inbox. But also having a way for people who legally work in Canada, because I want to encourage people to work legally, not under the table, which is a really massive system right now in our immigration system. There are lots of people who've come here on temporary resident visas. They have perhaps a T4, but it's not their real T4 and they're working under the table at some other job. So to encourage people to work legally, we need to provide incentives. And I think we can do so through express entry, but not by designating a specific amount of points. Because if we do it for one group, for one pathway, we'll have to do it for others, and that will skew the results and net out. It might not be of benefit to Hong Kongers who are here.
Yeah. And in a positive way, maybe we can learn French while you're waiting the PR applicant. There is a lot of points to add
Je peux
up.
vous aider si vous voulez pour apprendre un peu de français, oui.
I have completely don't understand what you're talking. But I think I need to learn French too. Okay, so how about we move on to the Q&A section? Aileen, is that okay? Okay, but let our audience first, okay? We have one audience. I need to pass the mic to you to share your case.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Hello. I'm Olivia. And as I will share my case now, and we have 4 members in our family, husband and 2 children. And I arrived in Canada. I arrived in Canada in April 2022 and studied in SAIT and graduated in January 2024. After that, I applied for PR and also the open work permit under Hong Kong pathway, and also my husband open work permit and 2 children's minor SP. And after that, I received the rejection in September 2024. And after that, I reached my MP, George, but he only said the same reason with the rejection letter.
George Chahal?
George Chahal.
Chahal, the one in the Northeast, Skyview?
Yeah. And so I can only reapply for my open work permit and restore the status. However, in December, I again received the restoration rejection. So the rejection letter said I need to leave Canada immediately. After that, I reached to Hong Kong Watch to seek for help. And until now, I still didn't receive any
response.
progress. And still haven't got the work permit yet. And so now I'm facing so many challenges. We have no work for already 1 year, more than 1 year, and we have only left only 6 months living expenses because we have no more money because no work. And our children maybe need to stop attending school, or we need to pay a huge international school fee, but we can't afford for that. And our driver license will expire soon. We cannot go anywhere, even though we can't go for our shopping for grocery. And we have low health care for, I think, more than half years. And so our children can't participate in any activities because we can't afford the medical expense if they get hurt. Mm-hmm. In this half years, we can only stay at home, and we don't want to go anywhere because we are afraid for any medical or maybe arrest by police. I don't know. So I can't sleep well in this half years, and my emotion is already also. So I don't know what can we do next step, and can we still stay in Canada, or we need to go back to Hong Kong? But we can't do that. So we want to get your help. Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
So thanks for sharing that, Olivia. Have you gotten a procedural fairness letter from the department or a removal letter from the Canadian Border Services Agency? It will come in the mail. Like, this is Canada. We ask you nicely to deport yourself first.
有冇信寄俾你話要求你離開加拿大 ？Yeah, they got the email.
Restoration rejection letter.
No, so they say that, but you're supposed to get like a formal letter from another department. That's it? You haven't gotten anything else? Okay, so in Canada, you would now be what's called on the working inventory, which is the Canada Border Services Agency has it there. But until you get the letter, there's basically no expectation that you have to do anything. Do you have an active application with IRCC right now? Like, have you reapplied for status, like an open work permit, reapplied for your Hong Kong pathway?
We applied for the restoration, but...
So, sorry, you're saying restoration. Do you mean that you appealed the decision?
No. Because
reconsideration?
Only restoration status, because if we reapply for the open work permit, we need to restore our status first, and then we can reapply for the open work permit. But before applying for the open work permit, we got the rejection for the restoration status.
Okay.
So we only can do until
you get your status restored, yeah. So this is going to be more complex, so I can't fix it live, but there's a guy over there called Cole Andrew who works in my office. So if you give that to Cole, and then we'll take down all your contact information. I have a bunch of forms I need you to fill out to give you permission to access your file and whatever's there. Because without your status being restored in an active application, there's nothing like to do like for a member of parliament. Like, there's no work permit to look at. So first I need the status to be restored, but I need to look at exactly all the documents and see what was written into it as well. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Aileen, I think is the online question, please.
Okay, so we got a lot of question about rejection. So when people reject it, yeah, of course now they try to, so we help them and then send it to you. So some suggestion is like, is it possible for RCC to issue AIP, approval in principle? Because to them that letter is quite important, because a lot of people right now, they're waiting over 18 months. So then majority, actually the work permit actually is going to expire now, because the work permit takes much longer than we thought it would be. So with a letter like approval in principle, AIP, some people got that, but majority of people did not get that. So that will be very helpful for the employer, and also especially this one said for Ontario for the healthcare and also for tuition fee. So is it possible for you to help to communicate with RCC about this AIP? So quite a lot of question about this.
So I don't know how AIPs are issued because they seem to be random to me, because like you said, very few people get them, sometimes the files almost look exactly the same to me. I don't know which visa officers are being told they can and which ones are maybe being told they can't. So I've never been able to figure out, and I've been at this for a while, what the criteria is for obtaining one. The Parliament is not sitting right now, so there's very little I can do through a parliamentary committee to try and get an answer at the government. And the likelihood is that there will be an election soon, depending on what happens tomorrow, I guess, with the Liberal Party leadership. So I can't make promises. The most I could do is write a letter to the minister, but he has zero reason to listen to me. He has zero reason to respond. Usually it takes him about 6 months. If Parliament resumes, though, I'd be more than happy to take it up directly at the Immigration Committee if I'm on it again, to have the ministry officials come in to explain who's getting AIPs and who isn't, and why isn't this particular pathway program, which the intention is to unless you have something in your background that prohibits you from getting PR, that people will get their PR, just a fixed amount of slots, which is causing the delays, that people should be getting their AIPs in the mail so that you can proceed with your life. So if Parliament resumes, I can take that on and I can make it a commitment. I'll take it up at committee.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you. I want to follow up with AIP. So Hong Kong Watch actually did a survey under Vote for Hong Kong. So the number one concern for the Hong Kong community actually is immigration, Hong Kong pathway. Because a lot of voters, their friends or their family member or someone, from the church, they're suffering because of the backlog. And also mainly because of the work permit expiration and also rejection. So I think we really want the Conservative Party, if Conservative Party will become the majority government in the future. So we hope that something like AIP will be very helpful, because it will take a long time to process PR, but at least they have the work permit. The OWP, only the optional one, only 3 years. Okay, so now the backlog so long. 3 years may not be long enough for a lot of people. So if they can have AIP to show that under the application for PR, actually approval in principle, but it's still the admission target to get to become PR. At least they have a letter like that for them to have healthcare, education, and also to have to show to the employer. So I think maybe this is something like the Conservative Party should consider a letter like that.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Let me pass the next audience.
Hello, Mr. Kamit. Nice meeting you today. I'm from Ontario. I just flew this morning in here. I've got a question would like to raise up. I put it short. It's talking about my stamp duty. I bought my apartment since 2021 because at that time IRCC said that on stream A or B is promised that 6 months to 9 months can become a PR. So I fully confident and have a nice how do I say it? Confidence of buying the properties in here. But by the end of this year, my 4 year for the purchasing the 15% stamp duty will be expired. And I don't think I will become a PR at that time. So my question is, because of the IRCC backlogs, so this is a little bit extremely unfair financial burden to my family. So is it possible for you, when the parliament's open again, and make a discussion about the extension of the stamp duty refund deadline for the application who are being unfairly penalized due to the IRCC processing delays? This is not a small amount of money. We took 15%. We bought a house nowadays over $1 million, and that is our money we earn in Hong Kong. And I talked to one of the I can't remember I talked to the members of parliament, my local members of parliament.
Who's your local member of parliament?
Paul Cheng. I have been make multiple attempts to contact his office, multiples. And the only answer his office gave me, I can't help. I don't know how to help. So what can I do? So this is why I fly to here. And this morning I was stuck. My flight canceled in Saskatchewan, and I drive 6 hours, just arrived here.
Just on time.
Yes. You know, they put me back on the flight of 3:30, but I say the meeting will be finished around that time, so no point for me to come here. So I just decide to rent a car and drive up. So I'm extremely tired, but I really need to see you and meet you because I can see that you can help us. I know that. No, I totally understand.
Pressure, right? Pressure.
A lot of patience.
No, I totally understand. Mr. Kamich, you are I contacted your office before, honestly, and Mr. Pavlo Kucha.
Yeah.
And he advised me to bring this issue to you today in person. That's why. I draft a letter. It's quite long, and I can give you this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let me finish my last sentence. Sorry, Mr. Kamich.
Yeah, you're a long way.
Just
here.
Tom is fine.
And I'm very disappointed about my local member, the member of parliament.
Trust me, I am too.
You know, I've been contacting him through emails, call him, write letters, even talk to some of the newspaper, radio, and they told me that I'm so naive to purchasing the apartment. I was so angry at that time. I feel Canada can give me a lovely, safe atmosphere to live. So I confidence to buy an apartment in here. And I confidence 4 years time can get our PR. But until now, well, I think maybe we still have hope.
Still hope.
Yep. But at this moment, I need to stay that 2025 November will be my deadline. And I don't know who can I contact, who can I ask to help. So I give some hope to you. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
4,000 kilometers.
Where did you buy this house or condo?
2021.
No, I know, but where in Toronto?
Malcolm.
In Markham?
Oh,
Okay.
this one.
So, like,
And also, I would like to raise to I applied my PL and PGWP last year May, and I still have not got my PGWP visa, permit, until now. So I applied my BOWP on November because to maintain my status.
just to, yeah.
I need to spend money again to reapply for that. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law in Hong Kong getting hospital in February. Because I need to maintain status with my husband, we can't live here.
Can't leave, that's right.
So I don't know what can we do now. And yes,
What do you do professionally, you and your husband?
my husband works.
Like professional occupation,
Oh, okay. He's IT. I'm a teacher.
you're a teacher?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like the reason I groaned a little bit, Paul Chang is not just any member of parliament. He's a parliamentary secretary to the Minister of
I
Immigration.
totally understand.
He-
This is why
He's at committee with me. He has heard all of the same things I have from officials on the Hong Kong program. And like, he's the sidekick to the immigration minister. He's the backstop, and he's supposed to be taking cases like yours as examples.
The ridiculous thing is he say he can't help.
Which
You
is
know,
untrue.
Even I ask advice, I call him. Well, they love to have a afternoon tea or something like that. Reject, write a letter, can't help. Call office, don't know what to help. The only thing they provide processing time for the PGWP and processing time for the PR. That's all.
But
they
you can check
help.
yourself. You
I
don't
can
need
check
his help.
myself.
Yeah. So his office and him are not telling the truth. They can help because he is literally the person amongst all the MPs who has the most access to the immigration minister, because he would be sitting in many of the same meetings that the immigration minister would be sitting in. He's not just a liberal in the Liberal caucus, so automatically they meet together on Wednesdays, every Wednesday. But he's the parsec, we call him parsecs. Like he's literally the sidekick, the one who is supposed to implement the policy direction, the ideas at the committee on behalf of the minister. He's supposed to lead the way, and he has access to all the government officials. Like he can email any one of them to ask them about questions. I have to ask you though, on your particular file, did you ask them to expedite the file for hardship region?
I have already sent letter through the office to ILCC already.
And I'm guessing
for
you didn't get a response.
PGWP, for PR, and also for the this year my.
But when you talked to Paul Chang's office, did you ask them if they could label it, like ask the department for it to be labeled as a hardship case, a financial hardship?
I didn't do
to be
that because
expedited?
I just follow what they asked me to do, and they just say they have called the ILCC office already, and they show me the email. That's all. You know, I feel so disappointed about that, and I honestly this is why I need to come and see you, and I would like to have some more advice. Maybe, I don't know. The thing is, he is one of the secretary of ILCC now.
He's there.
Yes. So I'm sure he can do more for that. And
Yes.
the only question, the only answer is,
I can help.
I can't help.
No, that's
ridiculous.
just not true. Like, when I tell you I can't help, I'm in opposition. I'm a conservative. I sit in opposition benches. The immigration minister doesn't care what I think, which is the standard opposition. It's not just me. It's New Democrats. It's the bloc members. All of us are in the same situation. But Paul Chang's his parliamentary secretary. Like, he literally has the same amount of knowledge that the minister has, just doesn't have decision-making authority. I'm going to need to give your letter to Cole, though, because Pablo works in my Ottawa office. He runs my Ottawa office, but my constituency office here in Calgary is the one that takes care of these. I need to go through it in more detail, because so what's going to happen is that's a provincial rule. When you purchased your property, these are vacancy taxes that exist in different parts of Canada. There may be nothing that federally we can't tell the city to change it.
That is not a vacancy tax. That is for the overseas buyers, for the 15%. I think it's for the whole
income tax, your federal income tax.
Additional property tax for the
overseas, for everyone, I think.
Or non-citizen buyer.
Yeah.
There is a 20.
That's for the
25%.
My at that time is 15%.
15%. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's levied by who? This one was levied by who? Whose letterhead was on the top of the letter? When you paid it?
Paid it to the finance department, I think. So that's for the whole Canada. It's not just for Ontario.
The finance is collecting information right now on non-permanent resident who purchase properties in Canada. But as far as I know, they're not levying a tax on them. So I need to look at those tax documents as well to make sure. Because in British Columbia, for example, it's local municipalities levying them, and the province has one too that it levies, because Albertans are affected by it. So I just need to know who's levying, because that is a chance it can't be changed. But yours is an example of like financial hardship will be caused if they don't process it, because they should process yours expeditiously just to be able to tell you a yes or a no, so then you can plan your life. But there's a high possibility that you will not get that money back.
Well, totally understand, but I just try my last chance.
You don't have to like it. I'm just telling you, you don't have to like it. I wouldn't like it either. But Paul Chang is absolutely able to help you. He would be able to at least have it labeled as
But the thing is, I can't even talk to him. I can't even see him. I don't know how to contact him. That's the problem. I need to work. I've got 3 kids. Same things. I don't have the PGW permit.
You're not
I
the
only
first
have
one to tell me that liberal
BOWP
MPs are
permit
hiding. Yeah.
because I need to maintain status. I've got, they cut my childcare benefit before. Education department called before, and they want the permit. Okay, they don't want to see the whatever date the authorization letter. They don't want to see that at all. They want the actual permit. So I don't know what can I do.
Cole is hiding back there behind some people, but if you can give me some information, I'll sit down and look at it.
Thank you very much.
The only other kind of asterisk I have to give you, if an election does happen, I don't have access to my office. I'll have one staff member working in my Calgary office on local files, but then I'll have to suspend work on a file like this.
Thank you very much.
But what I can do perhaps this week, if we can expedite it, I can commit to you. I'll try to get it to the deputy minister's office, and maybe they can at least give it a second look to see why can't they give you an answer faster. Can't guarantee a yes, but at least a response would help you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Last time I saw Mr. Chang is in the Chinese New Year, Liberal Chinese New Year party in Ottawa, in person.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Aileen, pass to you for the online questions.
Yeah, so I think the 15% actually is the Ontario tax. So I would suggest you also go to your Ontario MPP. So it's Billy Pan. I think you should reach out to him as well for that.
She said that Billy asked her to see Paul Chang.
So I think what's happening there is that the provincial MPP is saying this is not a tax issue, this is a visa issue. If they process it faster, then you will get your 15% back off the property purchase. while Paul Chang's office is saying, can't help you because it's not an immigration issue, it's a tax issue, go talk to your, like they should have said, go talk, right? So it's just yeah, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, okay, so we have other question that some people, they were told when they apply for PR, they're not supposed to leave Canada. But some people, they need to visit their family because of serious illnesses, so they want to visit. But they are afraid to leave Canada. But right now, the processing time, I think actually over 18 months. So they ask, like, is it possible for them just to visit and meet their, family member, and then they come back?
No, don't do it. That's the best advice I can give you. I know that's very hard to hear if you have a funeral to go to or if your mom, dad is really sick, but you run so many risks. One is, the most basic one is you could be arrested at the airport in Hong Kong. They'll see that you were in Canada for an extended period of time. They will look at your social media. I know Canadian citizens who have literally flown there and been denied entry into Hong Kong and forced to stay in like the customs in between area and then flown right back. So that's one. Two is visa officers, as of the last budget, the Liberals introduced new rules allowing the visa officers to cancel any applications for any reason. And Parliament, this was forced through. I voted against it, as all Conservatives did. But visa officers now have the authority to cancel any application for any reason they deem fit. CBSA officers, upon re-entry into Canada, can also do so at any time. You will also have to explain why you left Canada for that particular piece of time. And if your explanation, again, it's a visa officer on the other side who doesn't know you and they don't know anything about Hong Kong potentially, who will go like, I would only go back for a funeral for 2 days, not a week or 2 weeks. Why did you stay there longer? Maybe there'll be a hurricane, the flights are canceled, or maybe, I don't know, LegCo decides to ground all flights for 2 weeks. In all of those situations, you are a non-permanent resident of Canada. Just because you have an application here doesn't mean we owe you any consular services. You would literally be stuck in what I consider the PRC, which I can't think of anything worse than being stuck in the PRC, but that's just me, without the advantage of having consular services from your government, because you'd be considered an NPR. So I say no, don't do it. It's not just Hong Kongers. I give this advice to everybody from different nationalities and countries of origin, especially if your country of origin has an autocratic system where they could do simple things like, they could take away your ID at the airport when you're trying to board a flight, which has happened to people I know who are from Iran, who I've had situations of constituents who've had their documents seized at the airport and they had a PR document. And so I really recommend don't do it. It's not worth the risk. And I know it's terrible because you have family members who are sick in a hospital or there's a funeral to go to, and like you, I come from a culture which really values family ties, intergenerational ties, but just I just don't do it. I can't counsel someone to do that. It just creates administrative problems for IRCC and then unnecessary risk from two governments: the Canadian government upon re-entry and the Hong Kong PRC controlled government.
Okay, next audience.
Hi, thank you. Hello. Oh, yes. After the friends from Ontario, so I'm from Vancouver, so I have only 24 hours less in Calgary, so I need to get a chance to speak out. First of all, I need to thank you, Tom and Cole in the behind. You remember I met you in Richmond last month.
Yeah.
So my case, I want to share my case before my question. I applied in August 2023. So it's more than 18 months, and I passed the case to Tom 1 month ago. And the reason I passed because I saw many people in my same time already got the PR. I'm still in the limbo. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering, is it my problem or some issue? So the reason is I tried to contact RCC and my local MP more than 20 times. They say all my assessment has been passed 1 year ago, which is everything fine, just wait. And this time when I send my case to Tom and Cole, they found out is the RCC guy is wondering if my family and myself in Canada or not. So they're wondering for a very long time without asking me. But the thing is, when I call them and my MP call them, they say, if it's fine, just wait. But that's the problem. So my case already stuck in more than 18 months. So I need to thank Tom and Coase. They are the only person can take out what they think in their mind. So. So my last question is simple, is that I just found another friend who already applied in June, 2 months before me. So I think there's only very few people has been over more than 18 months. So do you think we can put a list of people which apply maybe in May, I don't know, June or August? Do you think that those like 10 or 20 people, we can have special look at those people? Maybe we have to get more close looking at the people which much far behind. So this is my question to Tom to see if it possible have this thing. And the last question I want to have to Sam, because my wife is a big fan of you. Can we take a pictures after this?
So for the applications, yes, those who from like May, June of 2023, if you can, we can collate them together. I need their permission. I need the forms all filled out with their signatures, because otherwise IRCC won't give me anything. But we can put them in an Excel spreadsheet. If you put it yourselves in a spreadsheet, that would save Clarice in my office a lot of time, and I can promise you to get it to the right person to take a look at what's been going on.
Okay, Aileen, your online question, please.
Yeah, so we got a lot of questions asking about the open work permit, because in the past they believe that they should get that in 1 to 2 months, but now a lot of people waited 6 months, still no result. So they want to know like how long they need to wait for the open work permit, like the optional open work permit, and also for those on Stream A, so they apply for PGWP. So that process also slowed down a lot. I heard that it was only 1 month to get that, more than a year ago. Now also slowed down a lot, and they also waited over 6 months. So they want to ask you like, normally how long? But of course, maybe you cannot answer that. Then they want to know like, if there's a new government, will you have any streamlined process, like how many months to process open work permits?
Okay, I can answer it. So just on the first one, from Stream A to PGWP and the processing times. So the processing times, they've been yo-yoing so far. So they get shorter at one point, longer at other points, and I honestly don't know what the OWP processing time is right now in general, because they also sometimes vary by country of origin because of how the visa processing system works. That's the way they're assigned in the pool. The PGWP though is being restricted by the federal government, so less and less persons are being made eligible because their programs are study. There's some grandfathering in, but there's a lot of reductions that are happening through there. There can only be more reductions to happen in the postgraduate work permit in general, and it will have an impact on everybody, where many people, because of the program you study, will be affected. For those who aren't in that program though, again, I have to look at the processing times for PGWPs right now in Canada and kind of by region, but because of this thing that's going on with the non-routine versus routine applications, that number is skewed. So whatever you see inside your system, the best one to check really is inside RCC. Once you're beyond that point, that's when you should go to your member of parliament, because if you go within the processing time, they're just going to do what my office tells you to do, because you get so many. 90% of my work in my Calgary office is immigration. And that's true for all members of parliament. Some people have 2 or 3 staff members. All they do all day long is immigration case files. This was not the case 20 years ago. It was like, there used to be a Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, who was from Calgary. Even in the Conservative years, it was bad. I'm not telling you it wasn't. Processing times were long. They got better about 2008 to 2011, when the system was completely reset to 0. Canada actually reset its entire immigration system to 0, returned everybody's applications, 6 to 8 million of them, and we restarted the whole system then. We, at one point in the last 9 years, were approaching that type of disaster. So today with the postgraduate work permits, it can only go down. It would go down in a majority conservative government. There would be less PGWPs processed. But for those who are in the stream right now, where you are, finishing your studies and converting to an open work permit, my desire, my want is to preserve as much of that as possible. And we can't provide a guarantee like you will, because that's what the Liberals have done. They said, well, I guarantee you in 6.5 months, you have your PR pathway guaranteed. That's not how visa officers work. It's not how the process has worked. For that to happen, you would need to put in a lot of resources, a lot of visa officers. This department is letting go 3,500 full-time equivalent staff right now. So processing times can only get longer. My preference would be to train visa officers and train them in a way where they're not being moved around the department, because that is leading to more errors. If we could reduce the errors where a visa officer tells you you're not eligible because you don't have an LMIA, which makes no sense, or tells you your program of study is not eligible when it is eligible and you should get your postgraduate work permit, that would reduce the reconsiderations, the appeals, the going to an MP's office to ask for help. Like, all of these things slow down the system. And the big problem now is the Liberals are just kind of rolling along with it. The government over the past 9 years has rolled along with it. They've made a digital system as of 2022, and there's still the same amount of processing mistakes, processing delays are not any better. Also, reducing the amount of persons outside the country applying to come here would also be a huge help. So the non-permanent residents, the federal government, the Liberals have released a number. They expect 900,000 non-permanent residents to leave the country over the next 2 years. That's their net out of the country. Conservatives, we would not change that number. We would just change how that is processed. A person waiting outside the country for a non-permanent resident status should wait longer than someone within the country who's already physically here, who were trying to maintain their status, because I recognize things like you will lose your health care. Your kids will lose access to their schooling. That creates a whole much more work for the provincial government, for the local government, and that doesn't benefit anybody in any way. So we should be able to give people faster responses. I can't guarantee, though. I don't want to give you like guarantees, because I don't want to give you false promises. What I would much rather do is guarantee you like this is something that would be a priority for us to try and fix and try to make it better, because I do a lot of these meetings like this now, where I hear from people directly telling me how awful and terrible it is to work with IRCC. Another thing I would like to do that will speed things up, I just can't tell you how much, is for you to know who the visa officer is when they process your application. The Americans do it. In America, when you have a visa application, you know their cell phone number, you know their work number, you know all of their information, you can reach them directly. And the Canadian system is very opaque. I don't know whether we can change it, because I want to look at the legal repercussions of doing so, but you already know who the visa officer is through the GCMS codes. They have a 4-digit code that is their code as an officer. It would much be better if they could ask you questions directly, as opposed to not knowing anything about you, not having a relationship they can tell. If it works for the Americans, it should work for us too. It doesn't create a bias in the system for them to know who you are. And I say this, I used to have a staff member who studied in America, and she had that instantly an app where you logged in when you were working and you logged out when you stopped working. And her visa officer called her the next day after she fell asleep while working as a teaching assistant. She fell asleep and didn't log out of her app. She was logged into the app more hours of work than she was permitted. Her visa officer called her on the weekend and said, I see that you have worked more hours than you're legally allowed to. Explain to me why. And she explained, she said, that's okay, but I need a letter from an email from your employer explaining to me this immediately. So she got it sent, and the problem got resolved. In Canada, that would be like a 6 to 8 month ordeal with administration. Nobody answers your phone calls, IRCC. Nobody answers your email, so you have to go to a member of parliament. They give us these blank, ridiculous answers. So I think this concept, if more and more people talk about it, the Americans do it, we could do it too. I just don't know what the legal repercussions are, so I'm not making a promise about it, but that would be a change to the immigration system in Canada, I think would really help speed up processing times, just to answer the questions quickly and just to get information faster than having people stand back and have this portal where you're just waiting to be asked a question, where you could proactively provide the information that's desired by the visa officer.
Okay, next question for one more question for you, or maybe him first.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for your time today, and thank you for you sharing a lot of alternative for some who great idea to like EE or extra point for Hong Konger. But for someone who already here, who already applied submitted the PR application, actually we didn't talk too much of this party. Because so that's the question for me is, I would like to hear how the conservative government or you will have some idea on who already rating, maybe a year, maybe more than a year. Because we can foresee that the time will be more longer, and then the queue will be longer. Now I think already have 10,000 Hong Konger already submitted the PR application. So I think this is so crucial for us to know, is it any plan, any idea for you to fix it? Yeah, thank you.
So there's about 18,349 in processing. There's like 29,680 over the last 3 years just about, which I've put in an application. I've always said it's about 50 to 60,000 Hong Kongers in a different pathway programs. That's the number I have in my head. Like to fix it, you would basically need to adjust the H&C application line. Because if you increase the lines or you keep it at 10,000, you effectively double the number of spots available for all H&C applications. So there's no easy answer that's just for Hong Kong pathway programs because simple point, H&C is supposed to be, like I said at the beginning, the program that catches people who fit in no other program. Well, that's a question of government policy. When they create policies for the other programs, they need to make sure they're broad enough that they can be interpreted in a way that includes all the people they want and excludes the people they don't want applying for those programs. What the government's created now is a whole bunch of temporary residents are in Canada competing for very few PR spots. So it's not just Hong Kong pathway which is affected, it's all pathways are affected for all program streams across everything. Like my preference for just the refugee part, so refugee H&C I consider one part, would be to say reduce the number of government-assisted refugees. It's the most expensive form of refugee intake into Canada, and preference PSRs, so privately sponsored refugees into Canada. And then we have this like a type of like blended visas for when you include someone who's a government-assisted refugee and PSR. But those top two and then H&C should all be considered as one. And what we should be preferencing is community sponsors should be able to pick up more people. That will then lighten the load on H&C applications. The economic streams of immigration should be better built so less people fall through the cracks and feel that they must apply for H&C, because that competes directly with Hong Kongers, competes with Sudanese, competes with the largest program, which is the Ukrainian Kiawad visa. And you can see what they've done with the Ukrainian visa program. They've delayed the renewals for 1 year that you have for applications. Many of those people will be applying for H&C as well. Because if you're 55 plus and you are from an occupied region of Ukraine, from like Mariupol, or you're from the Donbass, your town does not exist anymore. Literally, there's no town. There's just Russian tanks and vehicles and infantry who are occupying your home, and there's no home left, so you can't go back. But if you're 55 plus, and you don't speak English or French, it's going to be very difficult to learn a new language, so you can't apply for any economic streams. You're likely already married, so you can't do a spousal sponsorship inland. You're not a parent or grandparent of someone already here, which means that all of those streams you could come in through are ineligible. You can't be a government-assisted refugee because you're already in Canada. You could be a privately sponsored refugee through perhaps a church group, but they've all been paused as of November by the government. So the only application is H&C. And there's quite a bit of those people who are in Canada, because I've been to a lot of Ukrainian basement churches doing exactly this, doing case files for people. So there is no easy answer. Like, we have to get all the immigration system correctly fixed to reduce the load on H&C so that more people who are in the Hong Kong pathway can get their applications and get them approved. So my preference will be to have that debate about the numbers within those streams, so we don't see a reduction from 10,000 the way the Liberals have it right now to 4,300, because that is a cut of over half. It is actually the only line that is cut by 57%, whereas all the other ones are cut by about 20 to 21%. That was an intentional decision of the Liberal government, Paul Chang, who would have been at the table making these decisions and okaying them. He would have been there. He would have been one of the persons consulted by the minister before they made this decision for this reduction. And this is the only line, even while they made all these promises to others. So that line is one I'd like to look at in government to see whether we can't preserve it at 10,000. How do you do it? Well, you have to reassign it because numbers cannot go up. They can only be reassigned from the current places that they're in. So like I said, I don't do false hope. I don't want to tell you I'm going to fix it. I also, because I know this is going to be posted online, I have no desire to be the immigration minister because I recognize how hopeless it is to fix as a department, how difficult it would be for whoever is going to be the immigration minister in Canada if we earn the right to govern as Conservatives. But it starts there, is getting the immigration system right and then moving the numbers around within that refugee H&C stream to preference those who are already in Canada to make sure they have a faster time getting it. And also being honest with you is that you will probably have to renew your work permits at least once as an OWP. And streamlining that process, reducing the back and forth, the errors in the system will speed up the work that visa officers can do. Because visa officers right now, they have to process something like 14 files per day, like in an 8-hour workday, with a 1-hour lunch and coffee breaks that mandated by the union. Like, how much can you do? You can do one every half hour. Like, that means half hour for all types of applications, which means the yeses are very easy. It's the no's that are more complicated. So, and an HNC is the most complicated and difficult one to process because there are persons, I'm sure, who've applied to a Hong Kong Pathway program who do have criminal records, whether valid criminal records, like you actually did something terrible in Hong Kong that we should know about, or you were persecuted by the Hong Kong government and you were arrested for protesting, you were rioting according to them, and you were labeled as an enemy of the people or whatever ridiculous crime they think you've done. That will be flagged. That takes more time for the visa processing. So 10,000, I think, is the number we have in 2025. Looking for ways to preserve it. That's the job of the next government, is to find ways to maximize how many people we can bring in through the HK Pathway program. But recognizing it's also for others as well.
Oh, one last question for the online audience.
Okay, so actually it's two. So question about so they are on the stream like EE and PNP. The question is, can they apply like Hong Kong Pathway, EE and PNP at the same time? So second question is, because of PGWP, the number will be going down. Should we, Hong Konger, should we apply the optional OWP, especially designed for Hong Kong Pathway?
The provincial nominee program was cut in half by the Liberal government for all provinces. As far as I know, equally across all provinces. It's a program where the province picks its immigrants through these sub-programs. There are so many of these programs. Whenever I check, I find new ones that have changed. So please don't ask me exactly specific streams, because like Alberta had the Alberta Opportunity Stream that required 1 year of work and you could apply, and it was fairly easy. And then tens of thousands of people applied through the program. Now I'm told they have a digital portal and they're doing kind of a mini point system within it as well. Some provinces select their immigrants for PNP, for PR, through express entry. So you'll sometimes see provincial nominee program draw, and you'll see that they've actually selected through it. Can you apply for both? I think you can, but you have to look at every provincial program has its own rules, and they change. They're different in BC, they're different in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and the only province not to have it is Quebec. Quebec has the Quebec Skilled Workers Program instead, but you have to look at the rules that they have. Sometimes also you have a spouse. Sometimes your spouse will get more points in express entry than you will when you look at it. So you should always look at who has the maximizing of points. And sometimes it's just a few points that can make all the difference. But you can have a main applicant that's different on different applications. So check that out. That's also a choice. But follow the criteria to the letter. If it says you can't, then you can't, don't do it. But I don't know the provincial nominee criteria well enough to be able to give you advice on it. And then the second question was, Aileen?
PGWP or optional OWP is better for Hong Kong pathway PR applicants. Because the number for PGWP going down. So those Stream A, applicants for PR, they usually in the past they apply for PGWP. In the past it's only 1 month. Now it's much longer wait. So should they apply for the optional OWP visa for the work permit instead of going to apply for the postgraduate one?
I mean, you almost need like a immigration consultant or a lawyer. Like I don't know, because every single case will be different, right? And I think you could probably apply for both. I don't see a legal reason why you can't apply for both and just wait for whichever is the first one. I see a person nodding. You've probably done it yourself. Like the way I see it is, if you're in a high demand academic program that you complete in an occupation that people are desperate to get, then I would apply for a PGWP. If you are like working in like an entry level restaurant job or hoteling or something like that, at like customer service facing, I'd probably just get an OWP because it gives you a lot of flexibility. In terms of processing times, there's sometimes no rhyme or reason to anything on why certain ones get processed faster than others. I know that on PGWP, sometimes it is important which program you are in. Like if you tell me you finished like a PhD in like biomolecular biology, chances are like your university might even step in to help you out too. The employer that you're likely going to be working for will also step in and try to help out. On an open work permit, you can move around to any employer you want. You're just as free as any Canadian is to exercise your charter rights. And so exercise them, one. But yeah, I can't give you advice on that. Like it really is very situational and I don't want to give you like blanket advice.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And we have some more time. I want to leave it for most of our audience can have the interaction with Tom, and so we need to end the Q&A section right now. And I want to conclude that because I have a lot of inbox for many cases, different type of cases. Someone is outraged, someone is lost their patience, someone is lost their faith. But I want to share with Tom is most of the Hong Kong applicants, they stick with the system. They have patience actually, but previously because Canada just been through pandemic, the immigration system is 180-degree changes and have a longer waiting time and cause financial hardship or no status in Canada. So yeah, stay strong, and once again, thanks Tom. Very low understanding about Hong Kongers, what we're facing, and try to answer all of your answers. So thank you, Tom.
Welcome.
And last thing is, I need to hand you the letter from Hong Kong Watch to Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre.
Okay.
Hope that hope that he and you can understand that most of Hong Kongers they stealing wood in Canada.
You want to sit down because the people did.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and the picture. So most of the Hong Kongers want to know. Yeah, we support conservatives, and we know you're understanding what we're facing, and it's a very good discussion today. So thank you all of us, and do you have any conclusion?
No, I've talked enough. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, once again, thank you. And thank you all the online participation and Aileen. Anyone to address at the end?
Thank you so much. It's our honor to have Tom Kimmich MP to come to spend your Saturday with Hong Konger. So we are very grateful. So we are very grateful for all your help. And for the last few months, you have helped quite a lot of family to have the open work permit, because once work permit rejected, usually there's no appeal, but you have done some miracle work and help our Hong Konger. We are very happy. We, on behalf of the Hong Kong community, really need to thank your work to help our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so Tom can stay a little bit longer for the interaction with us.
I have
10 minutes.
a Persian market to go to after this. Totally different community.
Yeah, I
Go
know.
there.
You're busy. Okay, thank you. Thank you all of us joining this discussion today. Hope every one of you can get a PR as soon as possible. Thank you. Thank you.